Thank you, Elder Alice, for blessing us with your wisdom and your guidance to open this event. Your words and your song have set a really meaningful tone to our time together today. And now, to kick off the debate, please welcome my co-moderator for this afternoon's event, Red FM's own Rishi Nagar.
Thank you, Cheryl and Elder Alice, for your blessings and the inaugural words and land acknowledgement. Welcome everyone joining us this afternoon here in the Grand Hall of the BMO Center in Calgary and those tuning in online. I am Rishi Nagar from Red FM, and I am excited and thrilled to be one of the moderators today for this debate among the candidates for the leadership of Alberta NDP. Our goal is to delve deep into the policies and the ideas that matter to all Albertans, from Coots to the high level. The questions tonight are not mine. They come directly from you, the everyday people of Alberta, who care deeply about the future of our province. Here is how it will work. Cheryl and I will present questions submitted by the Albertans, and our candidates will have a set amount of time to answer.
This afternoon's debate will take place over 4 rounds. In round 1, candidates will make opening statements, and they will each have 1 minute. In round 2, we will be taking 5 questions from the audience. Each question will be directed to a specific candidate who will have 2 minutes to respond. Round 3 is where things heat up. We heard from you that you wanted to see more one-on-one debate between candidates, so here it is. Candidates will go head-to-head with each of their opponents for 2 minutes and 15 seconds per round. And finally, round 4 will be closing statements from each of the candidates.
Now, let's get started with what promises to be a thoughtful afternoon. Now, without further delay and ado, please welcome on stage the candidates for leader of Alberta's New Democrats. Gil McGowan. Jody Carahu Stonehouse, Sarah Hoffman, Kathleen Galley, Nahid Nenshi. Now there are some rules. Candidates, I'll be asking and requesting that you don't talk over each other. You adhere to the time limits, and most importantly, keep the debate courteous and focused. You must stay within your allotted time, and if you do not, we have to cut you off. Sorry.
Do they all know that already? Okay, sorry. Yeah. Pardon me. There is 2 minutes for your opening statement.
To our live audience, please hold your applause until the end of each question to allow everyone to hear the response fully. And I urge everyone, please refrain from heckling or disruptions. Thank you all for being here and let's have a great debate.
Okay, let's get started with round one. In the opening round, each candidate has 2 minutes to make an opening statement. The order of the statements and the candidate's location on the stage today were drawn randomly beforehand.
And we begin today with Kathleen Ganley. You have 1 minute beginning now.
Thank you, Rishi. I am so excited to be with you all here today to talk about the future. And this is about the future of our party and the future of this province. As a progressive growing up in Alberta, I never thought I would see myself reflected in government. And then I did. That is due to the work of thousands of volunteers across this province. But it wasn't enough. This UCP government is a horrible government. They don't care about governing, they don't care about democracy, and they don't care about you. And before the last election, we told people exactly what they were going to do. And we were right about everything, from privatized medicine to taking away your pension. But it wasn't enough. We need to talk to people about the things that are most important to them, about how to keep a roof over their head and food on their table. We need to provide them a real offer on the economy. That old UCP story, the one about how if you give more to your boss, you'll somehow get ahead, that story isn't true. It only survives because we don't challenge it. And friends, our ideas on the economy are better. And without them, all we are left with is anger and big personalities. And we know that won't be enough. But when we talk about our ideas, we change hearts and minds. So here is my invitation to you. Let's do this together. Let's talk and share and build a party that reflects us all. When we work together, that is how we win together in 2027.
Kathleen.
Thank you.
And next, we'll hear from Gil McGowan.
Thanks, Rishi. So, I'm an Alberta farm kid who became a journalist, who became a union leader. I'm a father of 3 amazing 20-something-year-old kids and the son of a 90-year-old mom who called me to wish me luck before I got up here. I'm also a New Democrat, and like you, I am determined to make Danielle Smith an ex-premier. But before we can do that, we need something. Strategy. Are you familiar with SWOT analysis? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Will you help me with a quick exercise? Could all of you who have university educations or are currently in university stand up, please? Okay, take a look around. That's our strength. The polls tell us that we win among university-educated Albertans, especially in the 2 big cities. But that brings us to our weakness. The same polls tell us that we lose among Albertans with high school, college, and trades education. That is 60% of the population. Working people in that group are the missing piece in the coalition that we have to build in order to defeat the UCP. The threat is that we ignore that knowledge. Too many rural Albertans and working Albertans are outside our tent. We need to be laser focused on bringing them in. That's how we win in 2027.
Nahid Nancy is next with his opening statement. Nahid, please go ahead.
Thank you, Rishi. Thank you all so much for being here. Whoa, look at this room. Look at this movement that is being created to build a better Alberta. This is exciting. I hope you are as energized as I am. Amba wastich dada nastada size etia. Oki nitsugwa nitsuano kabesto chispistis. From the time of the Indigenous people who have been at this confluence of these two rivers, what the Blackfoot call Mokinstis, to today, we have been building community here on this land. And as I've been traveling every corner of this province these last couple of months, can I just be self-indulgent for a minute and say, it's good to be home. And it's great to be here with my friends, my neighbors, with all of you building this movement. The last 2.5 weeks have been tough. We have seen unprecedented attacks from the UCP on municipalities, on researchers, on education, on working people, on ethics, on values, on Albertans. Heck, we've even seen a few attacks on one another up here. And we do that all in the backdrop of so many of our neighbors suffering right now from the impact of wildfire. But I've seen something else these last 2.5 weeks. Not just that spring has come to Alberta, but maybe that spring has come to Alberta. What I have seen is an incredible movement of Albertans, rural and urban, young and old, everyone saying we deserve better, and we can get better, and we can get an Alberta that preserves opportunity and dignity for everyone, for workers, for students, for young people, for all of us who need health care, for the kind of Alberta that we want to build together. A strong, green, prosperous Alberta with dignity and prosperity of all. Let's build it together.
Sarah Hoffman, please go ahead with your opening statement.
About a day after I was sworn in as your health minister, I hopped in my beat-up old red Honda Fit. I got on the QE2 and I headed straight for the Tom Baker Cancer Centre. The new management hadn't met the executives at AHS yet, so they weren't really sure what to expect. They had about 3 spots roped off for me and my entourage, and I got out by myself. I shook the hands of all these people wearing suits and white coats, and I said, show me around. That was the day we started building the new Calgary Cancer Centre. And I will assert that building a brand new public hospital is the most NDP thing we could have done. But now we have to decide what we're going to do next. And it's so great to see so many friends here, volunteers, people who have built this party over decades. I've heard you loud and clear. You're proud of what we accomplished. We won the majority of the seats here. We won the popular vote. We won every seat in Edmonton. We won in Lethbridge and Banff and St. Albert and Sherwood Park. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And what we can't do is run the same election we just lost with a new leader telling everyone how awful Danielle Smith is and expect different results. What we need to do is knock on doors and talk about the things that I've heard on doors over the last year. We need to focus on healthcare, climate, and housing. We need bold NDP policies. And I am unapologetically NDP. I'm going to propose things like rent control that are going to make a real difference in people's lives. I'm going to make sure that I carry those values on the doorstep and in the cabinet room and into the Premier's office. And I invite all of you to join me in that. Thank you.
And finally, Jody Calahoo Stonehouse, please go ahead with your opening statement.
Ishnish Wakan for this beautiful day. Ishnish Alice for that song, that prayer. Chiefs, thank you for being here. And to each and every one of you, thank you for being here on a glorious sunny day. It's absolutely beautiful out, but it's not that beautiful for those folks up north. So prayers up to them that their homesteads are safe from the fires. And I want to give thanks to all the folks who donated and contributed to me being here, particularly the folks who've written me who are on AISH. I have donation after donation of $10, $10, $10, literally hundreds. and we stand here together. I would not be here without you believing in me and supporting me, and I am deeply humbled and grateful for that love, so thank you. And I look forward to the Alberta that we're going to build. You know, I have to say, coming back to Calgary is amazing. I graduated from MRU, went to Bowness High School, graduated from there. And when I was a kid, we used to walk down to the river, and I used to jump off the train trestles into the river, the beautiful Bow River. I don't know if that's safe, but don't tell my parents. And I'm worried. I'm worried about the rivers. I'm worried about the water, because water, of course, is life. Water is prosperity. Prosperity is our future, and our future must be about our children. It is about the next 7 generations, and we need long-term strategic planning that is going to plan for economic diversification, economic stability, while taking care of our waters, while taking care of our landscape, taking care of our elders and our children. It is absolutely essential that we start to do things differently. Exe Hai Nanaskaman, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you, candidates. And with that, it concludes the opening round, and now we move to the second round. For this segment, we have 5 audience members who are ready to ask one candidate each a question. The candidate selected has 2 minutes to answer the audience member's question. Each candidate will have the opportunity to answer an audience member's question. The other candidate will not have the chance to answer that question. And this round does not include open debate.
And our first question, hi everyone. Our first question is for Naheed Nenshi, and it comes from Sarah Milne from Calgary. Sarah, go ahead with your question.
As a parent and healthcare worker, a strong healthcare system is important to me. Recently, there was a story in the news that 40 medical clinics in the province are charging a membership fee for services. This members-only membership seems to be a slippery slope to privatizing healthcare. How will you ensure Albertans have access to the healthcare they need without having to pay out of pocket?
Thank you. Thank you so much for that question. Probably the most critical issue, one of the most critical issues facing Albertans today. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we've been warned that our healthcare system is on the brink of collapse. Well, folks, in many communities in Alberta, it has already collapsed. And it has collapsed despite the incredibly hard work of the frontline workers in the system, from the people who work at the very front lines, mostly racialized women, doctors, nurses, managers, administrators, all of them who have found themselves continually under attack by this government. So part of the answer is money. We've underfunded the system, and we've got to go find the money. The good news is when you're the mayor, you don't have much money, and you got to go find money. It's what I do. But we've got to find it. Second, we have to be based on a platform of respect for the people that work in the system. We can't tear up their agreements. We can't demonize them. We can't call them leeches on the system, as the UCP has done. We have to work with them to create solutions that work for everyone. You know, right now, if you peel the onion of the Premier and you keep saying, what's wrong with healthcare, what's wrong with healthcare, you get to her core and she'll say, AHS spends too much on management. Now, every study shows that's not true, but I also don't understand how creating 3 new organizations, each with management, is going to reduce the amount of management. The point is the UCP are playing us for fools, the people who need the healthcare system and the people who work in it. And we have to be able to build a better system based on what we inherit when, God willing, inshallah, we form government in 2027, October now, 2027. And finally, to your actual question, we got to enforce the Canada Health Act. That means that you have to have full access with your health card, not with your credit card.
Thank you, Naheed. Now we'll move to the question number 2.
And question 2 goes to Jody Callahoo Stonehouse and comes from Fritz Bitz, who drove all the way here from Edmonton. Fritz, go ahead with your question.
Hi, Jody. I recently retired as a social worker. Throughout my career, I worked from high level to high river and saw the effects of substance use disorders with both street-involved people and those who are housed and employed. The government has rejected harm reduction measures that have been studied and are considered best practices. They now only support what they are calling recovery-based models. What is your plan to provide services for these people and reduce the ongoing suffering and death for individuals who live with these disorders?
Thank you for that question, Fritz, and thank you for your dedication for the past 25 years working in this area. As many of you know, the opioid crisis is devastating. There are 5 First Nations a day dying in Alberta because of the opioid crisis. And so one of the solutions, as you mentioned, Fritz, was that they are building these centers that are not run by First Nations, that are not culturally relevant. So what I will do is we are going to invest in community. It is about repairing the harm. If we look at all of the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, Dr. Bruce Perry, it all talks about trauma. We have to do the trauma recovery work, which means we have to open the wound and do the work in culturally safe, culturally relevant, harm reduction spaces. Far too often, thank you, far too often, the one person who agrees, that's awesome. Far too often we're seeing our children, currently we've had more children in care than ever before. There's more children in foster care than there ever was in the Indian residential schools. Also, more children died in care than ever before. And we're seeing the cycles, as you mentioned, Fritz, they go from child welfare into incarceration. We need to reduce recidivism. We need to deal with the issues, which means we have to support moms and dads. We have to stop taking children away from their parents. It doesn't work, it's never worked, and it's not going to work. Which means investing in families, investing in Albertans. We want moms and dads to work. We want moms and dads to get education. We want moms and dads to be able to put food in the fridge for their children. So we have to reduce poverty, which means getting to the fundamentals of economic diversification, economic equity, lifting Alberta's families. We have to heal the harm and the trauma. Thanks for that question, Fritz.
Thanks, Judy. Now we'll move to the question number 3 for Gil McGavin.
Question number three comes from Kwesi Yaboa from Calgary. Kwesi, go ahead with your question.
Thank you for having me. My name is Kwesi Yaboa. I'm a regional sales manager for Canada Life here in Calgary. And every day I work with small and medium-sized business owners. And they are under enormous pressure. Pressure to manage their business and support their employees through this rising cost of living environment that we're living in. They also under enormous pressure to increase wages, to provide more services like benefits that has mental health, childcare services, diversity and inclusion priorities, as well as better working environment like better ventilation systems, etc. They have to do this at the same time, ensuring a growth in profits to support their employees, and at the same time not raise their prices for their goods and services that we all have to deal with. So my question for you is, how would you ensure small and medium-sized businesses in Alberta have the right environment to ensure that they continue to thrive and continue to drive our economy forward?
Thank you for that important question. This is important from a policy point of view, but also from a political point of view, because frankly, the people we need to bring into our coalition, who I mentioned at the outset, that 60% of the population who have college, trades, and high school education, who are currently voting for the UCP, we need to bring them into our tent to win. One of the reasons that they're hesitant to vote for us, and I'll put this bluntly, is because they think we suck at the economy. But here's the thing. It is not the New Democrats who are bad at the economy. It is actually the UCP. They are a threat to our economy. But in the past, we have ceded the field. We have ceded the field to the UCP on the economy. We've been told, oh, they're better at the economy. Let's focus on our strengths. What I'm here to say is that, yes, we are the party of healthcare. Yes, we are the party of education. Yes, we are the party of human rights. Those are our values. That's who we have to be. But in order to win, we also have to become the party of an inclusive economy, the party of affordability, and the party with a plan to maintain our prosperity in a world that's changing fast. So here's the thing about our story on the economy. What builds a strong economy? You know what it is? Investments in infrastructure, investments in people, investments in municipalities, investments in training. That's how you build a strong economy. But guess what? Those are exactly the things that the UCP are cutting. So we have to stop ceding the field on the economy, tell our story, win the election, and build prosperity for future generations based on our progressive vision for the economy. Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. We'll move now to question number 4 for Sarah Hoffman.
And question number 4 comes from Abigail Bernardo from Calgary. Abigail, go ahead.
Hi. In April, I graduated with a BSc in biology with a minor in religious studies. Due to my academic performance, I was able to receive some scholarships. However, I still needed to take out student loans. In 5 months, I will need to begin repaying my student loans with interest. It seems university is becoming more expensive every year, and soon it may become too expensive to even think about going to university. So my question is, what will you do to make post-secondary education affordable?
Thanks so much, Abigail. Did you graduate here? Did you go to school in Calgary? In Lethbridge, awesome. Well, we're really glad you're here, and I'm glad that we have such amazing post-secondary institutions in so many places across the province. My first experience in post-secondary was moving from the small town I grew up in, Canuso, into Edmonton. I went to Concordia, and at that time, you could work full-time in the summer, a lot of hours, but you could work full-time, and you could raise enough money off that full-time job to pay your tuition and live in dorm and buy books. It was a time that was a little bit easier. It wasn't cheap, but it was easier. And I have to say that it breaks my heart that we are seeing the pressures go up so much on young people and anyone who wants to pursue post-secondary. I was very proud to be part of an NDP government that we all elected that brought in caps on tuition and made sure that we addressed and brought us from the highest in the country to among the lowest. And it isn't rocket science. We need to invest in post-secondaries. We need to make sure that we continue to support academic freedom, which is absolutely under attack by this current administration in the province. And we need to make sure that the other costs that students experience, like housing, are brought in line with something that's more reasonable, something that we can get back to that idea of being able to work full-time for 4 months and raise enough money to live for the next 8. So I'm very excited to work with groups like the NDYA. If there's anyone here who's under 30 and wants to get involved in the Youth Caucus, it is an amazing place. They're always bringing forward resolutions for us to consider as party members on how to make life more affordable, and absolutely making sure that post-secondary is available for every Albertan who has a desire to achieve their full potential, go on and study, and be able to use those skills to contribute to the local economy is a very high priority for me. And I look forward to being able to tell those university students, too, that I'm going to make sure that their rent is reasonable, that we're building affordable housing, that we're building student housing, so that they can afford to live comfortably, safely, without having to take out even more student loans and having more debt when they're done. So thank you so much for raising that very important question, Abigail.
Thanks, Sarah. Now we'll move now to next question 5 for Kathleen Ganley.
And question 5 comes from Diane Mitchishin. Diane, go ahead.
As a special education teacher, I have seen how the daily impact of chronic underfunding is creating a crisis in our schools and classrooms. Our schools and classrooms are overcrowded. Children with complex medical, intellectual, and behavioral needs need more support and vision to flourish as violence in schools sadly continues to rise. We have the lowest per capita spending on public education in the country, and it shows every day in our schools. Students are suffering, and teachers are leaving the profession due to these stressors. The damage is extensive as things have continued to deteriorate for far too long. Education is at a breaking point. What is your plan to fix the damage the government has created? What sort of funding increases can we expect to see, and how will you find the money?
Thank you, Diane. That is an incredible question because it is critical to our future right now. And thank you for the work that you do. I know it's in difficult circumstances. So I hear every day from teachers and educational assistants who are working in classrooms about that deterioration in classroom conditions. They're the worst they've ever been, to the point where students are sometimes so frustrated that our teachers are being hit or kicked or bitten. So it has deteriorated significantly. And it has deteriorated significantly because of the UCP, because we are now at the lowest per student funding in the country, and we should absolutely be embarrassed about it. We have to do better. We have to do better, not just for students like my daughter, who is in the public school system right now, but for teachers and for education support workers. So how do we start on that? I think we have to start by measuring not just class size, but also classroom complexity, because that complexity makes a huge difference to how the room operates. We need to have not just teachers, but EAs in those classrooms to support our students to learn, because we don't know what we lose when we don't support those kids. We do that by funding not just for student population, but also for the complexity in our classrooms. We also do it by building schools so that teachers aren't forced to teach on gym stages. That's not a good learning environment for anyone. This is a problem that is entirely caused by the UCP. I want to thank every teacher out there who is preventing our system from crumbling, and let you know that we will be there to help you.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, audience members. And that concludes round 2.
We'll now move to round 3, the one-on-one debates. In this section, each candidate will have the opportunity to debate all other candidates. They will debate each question in pairs, and any candidate that is not a part of that pair will not participate.
And we will ask a question. The first candidate will have 45 seconds to answer the question, and then after 45 seconds, the second candidate can jump in, and the two candidates have 90 seconds to open debate.
The first question today goes to Nahed Nenshi, and Sarah Hoffman will be debating. It's Jody? And Jody Callahoo Stonehouse will be debating. Pardon me. Thanks for holding me to account, candidates.
Here we go.
Nahed, everyone on this stage has said they are running to be premier. But before you get to be premier, you need to be official opposition leader for 3 more years. So how will you use that time?
Thanks. You know, it's something I've been worried about, frankly, because I've never been in opposition before. But I've spent a lot of time speaking with my colleagues in caucus. I'm proud to have more caucus endorsements than any other candidate on the stage. And I've learned a lot about what it takes to build that team. So part of it will be internal, building the team, improving the processes of the party, getting ourselves battle ready for the election, figuring out how we're going to win the election. But the other part will be spending time from high level to High River and from Jasper to Lloydminster, talking to Albertans, helping understand their needs and co-creating a vision for the future that we can take into the election and beyond.
Well, and that's exactly what we have to do. We have to spend the next 3.5 years making sure we are never the opposition again.
Right.
Because it is not fun. Let me tell you, watching people make horrific decisions about Alberta's future, about our water, is awful to sit in there. And that is why we will spend the next 3.5 years traveling and visiting and sitting in kitchen tables and learning and listening from Albertans about what we can do as governors differently, better, to ensure that every Albertan has a successful opportunity in the future.
You know, Jody, you've been sitting opposite these guys. And I have been to question period a grand total of once in my life. And I was watching you and your colleagues and watching these monkeys on the other side. Can we influence them at all from opposition,
From
or do
what
we have
I've
to look
witnessed,
beyond them?
Rachel and the team have been there day in, day out, calling them out, saying, this is what should be done, this is what needs to be different. And they do not listen, they do not respond. When Janice Irwin brought forward bills, around the housing bill, they did not listen. They are not interested in what the opposition has to say. They are not interested in working together.
I will point out that the two times, and they both happened this week, that they have backed down a little bit. Well, once they backed down completely was on the low-income transit pass.
Because that's shameful.
Well, look, it was my project, right? I'm the one who built that here in Calgary. And I think, frankly, they were going after me a little bit. But when they backed down because of our allies, because of municipalities, because of citizens.
Well,
how do you think we should keep getting those people engaged?
Municipalities, great harm. Bill 18, Bill 20.
Sucks.
They are, yes, terrifying.
Simple way of putting it, sucks.
Thank you.
The second question goes to Gil McGowan, and Sarah Hoffman will be debating with him. Oil and gas are fundamental pieces of Alberta's economy and the provincial budget. How can we continue to grow Alberta's economy while reaching our shared climate goals?
Thanks very much for the question. This is fundamental. It's fundamental, once again, from a policy point of view, but also a political point of view, because those people who we need to win over, the college, trades, and high school educated voters, many of them work in the oil and gas industry, and they feel very uncomfortable about the transition that the world is undergoing. But I'm going to make a controversial statement here, one that I think we can back up and one that I think we can win on. Not only are we the party that could be the better party for the economy, but we can be the better party for oil and gas, because we can help that industry pivot towards a lower carbon future, and that could be our calling card in the next election. Win this election by protecting oil and gas, pivoting toward a lower carbon future. We could be the party that does that.
And I need to acknowledge that today there are a lot of people who drove south to get here. Anyone who came from north of Ponoka knows how horrible the air quality is today. We have the worst air today in Alberta of anywhere in the world. And we deserve a government that's going to take serious leadership to make sure that kids can breathe the air on a hot summer's day, to make sure that kids can play soccer, to make sure that we protect jobs and enhance jobs in other areas. And honestly, the oil and gas industry has figured out how to get the carbon out of the earth, and now they need to take it out of the atmosphere. We deserve partners that are going to make sure that we have clean air and water and that we can all live here prosperously for generations to come.
Well, I think most of you know that my day job is as president of the Alberta Federation of Labor, and over the last 2 years, the unions in our federation representing workers in oil and gas related construction, we've put together a blueprint called Skating to Where the Puck is Going. And one of the key ideas that I'm bringing from that report into this campaign is that we, as the owners of this resource, can make decisions about how it's developed. And the key idea is that instead of developing our bitumen resources especially for fuels, We can.
I just want to get in again. I
we
don't
can
want to be
pivot
Donald
towards
Trump, but we have to share the time.
We can pivot
So-
towards materials. and
What
that-
I need to
that's-
say is that some of us are proposing proposals on how we diversify the economy, and I'm grateful that you have, Gail. I have too. I'm proposing a youth climate corps that has anyone under 35 who
But with
wants
all
to
due
take climate
respect,
action
that's not
into
how
their
you
own
win an
hands.
election in Alberta, especially
Gail,
with our
this is
target
not respectful.
audience.
We're
I'm
supposed to
sorry.
share the
we
time.
have to talk about oil and gas, pivoting
Thank
towards
you,
a
Gail.
lower carbon
Thank you,
future.
Gail. That's the time.
The third question goes to Kathleen Ganley and Nancy. There is a crisis right now in healthcare in Alberta. The UCP government has started a massive overhaul of Alberta's healthcare system as an answer to this. Is this the right thing to do? And what would you do to get Alberta's healthcare back on track?
No, it's not the right thing to do. Kidding. Yeah, it's absolutely the wrong thing to do. Probably one of the main things we hear from throughout the province is from people who can't get access to a family doctor. We hear about people in Lethbridge, women in labor, having to drive on the highway to access services. We are in a crisis. It is an incredible problem. It is a crisis that has been caused by the UCP, by their war on doctors, by their decision to underfund things. And shuffling the deck chairs, rearranging the management, creating more management structures, these are absolutely not the solution under any circumstances.
You know, Kathleen, one of the things that I've been really impressed with, learning more about the party as a relative newcomer, but on this race, and shout out to all 4 people on stage, is that we've all gone to the experts on this and said, what are the things we can really do? Let's strip away our thinking and our ideology and really think about how we're going to solve some of these problems. What do you think about, and by the way, I agree 100% this organizational reshuffling is a disaster, but we're probably going to inherit it. And you've heard me say before that I don't think we can go to the frontline workers and say, you just went through a horrible, wrenching reorg, let's do it again. So what's your thought on how do we deal with the fact that we're going to inherit these 4 different things? I have some thoughts, but I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate that. I actually do think that on this issue, we're going to have to wait and see. I don't think that about all issues, but I think on this issue, we don't yet know, what the answer is going to be on that. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. I'm a big fan of concrete proposals.
Let's do it. I got 23 seconds.
I'm a big fan of concrete proposals, so I would love to hear what those are.
Well, on the mental health side, people know where I stand on that. That's what I spent the last 5 years working on. The mental health issue that they're building is a mess. Continuing care, I like your idea about focusing more on public investments in continuing care going forward. I have to figure out what the interface is going to be between primary care and...
Primary care too, yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Our 4th question tonight goes to Gil McGowan, and Jody Calahoo Stonehouse will be debating. Life is really expensive right now. Alberta has the highest inflation rates in the country. How will you make life more affordable for Albertans?
This is a central question. We need to become, or who's going first? Sorry.
Gil starts. Yep.
Oh, okay. Can we restart?
Can we restart the clock?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
There is no issue more important on the minds of that target audience that we have to set for ourselves than affordability. We have the highest rate of inflation, the slowest rate of wage growth, and we've actually lost our lead as the province with the highest wages in the country to Ontario and BC as of just a month ago. So we need to become the party of affordability. What does that mean? It means reducing insurance by introducing public auto insurance, by by re-regulating power to stop the price gouging, by introducing a housing authority to make housing more affordable, And also, we can reduce municipal taxes by actually supporting our municipalities with adequate infrastructure spending from the province, so they don't have to increase the taxes.
Well, when I'm leader, Gail, I'm going to put in a royalties agreement, dividends, so that we are holding, because we are the richest province in the country, we are holding industry accountable. These are our resources. We need to act like resource owners and ensure that Albertans are getting their fair share. We need to
Jody,
housing.
In every budget that the Conservatives introduce, they have a page that shows the gap between our tax collection and other provinces. We could increase, according to the last budget, we could increase our tax take from profitable corporations, from the oil and gas industry, by $21 billion every year,
and then we take that $21 billion and we invested in innovation, we invested in entrepreneurship, we invested in families, because we need to make sure that there are jobs for families. We want to make sure that Albertans can afford their houses, their cars, their insurance.
And I think we also need to be the party of higher wages, because in the same way that a government can make policies that attract investment, they can make choices that put policies in place that actually increase worker bargaining power and increase wages, like increasing the minimum wage, which hasn't increased for 5.5 years.
Which is why unions are so incredibly important, to make sure there's safety for the workers, that there are bargaining appropriately, that there are raises. I called on the unions.
The best way to help Albertans deal with the rising cost of living is to make sure they have wage increases that keep up with inflation.
Thank you both.
And the fifth question goes to Sarah Hoffman, and Kathleen Ganley will be debating. This year, wildfires and drought are expected to be worse than ever in Alberta. What should be done to protect Alberta communities?
So let me tell you about the Youth Climate Corps, because it is a game changer. It's a game changer for our economy. It's a game changer for youth who feel disengaged in the electoral process, and it's a game changer for our climate. This is something that I'm looking at other jurisdictions in the world who are employing young people, 35 and under, in taking climate action. And one of the big things we can do is making sure that they're building berms, that they're making sure that our brush is protected, that they're making sure that we have opportunities to have more wind and solar. And they deserve great jobs, union jobs, 2-year contracts to get them started in life, earning a great salary, and also addressing the serious impacts that we have right now with wildfires, knowing that in the Northeast and the Northwest, communities are on evacuation alert right now. You all remember door knocking last year with me too, and the air quality was horrible. We need to make sure that we're acting seriously to protect our environment for all of us.
I would agree with all of that. I think this has been, our seasons are getting worse and worse. And I think we all remember last summer having to keep our children indoors so they couldn't go outside and play. That is a huge problem. And the UCP are failing to address it on 2 different fronts. One, they aren't investing in wildfire fighters. They cut the Rappel team that did early action on forest fires and made this problem worse. But they're also completely failing to take any action at all on climate change, which is a major driver of these wildfires.
Absolutely, you couldn't be more right, Kathleen. And I was proud to join you and many others in fighting to bring back RAP. And I will tell you that being a kid growing up in Canusa, which is half an hour west of Slave Lake, you all remember what happened to Slave Lake and the horrific wildfires there. Those RAP attack, rappelling firefighters out of helicopters, when they'd come to school, every kid wanted to sign up to be a RAP firefighter. They wanted to have an opportunity to help save their communities, save their farms, and make sure that they protected the quality of life for all of us.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is, my sympathies are with every Albertan being affected here, and we absolutely must demand more action from our government. This is a government that can be pushed, but they have to be pushed by all of us standing up and acting together.
The 6th question this afternoon goes to Naheed Nenshi, and Gil McGowan will be debating. Here in Calgary, the NDP has made incredible strides. We won the popular vote in 2023, but we failed to form government. What do we need to do to continue to grow our support in Calgary?
Well, it's a good question for me, I think, because, I mean, the good news is I do know Calgary intimately. I know every neighborhood intimately, and I agree that the party has made extraordinary strides broadly in Calgary. But a lot of what Gil brings up around some of our demographic challenges are actually laid out in the microcosm of Calgary. So I always say, look, if you were to take a map of where I won 3 times and overlay it over the seats the NDP needs to get a majority, you'd have an NDP majority. But it's not that easy. It's actually quite a bit more complicated. What we need to do is be able to really speak to different sorts of folks. We need to speak to men. We speak to women really well. We need to think about how to speak to men. We need to think about how to speak to people who work in oil and gas and broaden our appeal widely.
Thanks, Naheed. In order to win in Calgary and anywhere else, we have to address this letter.
Please.
And
No,
in
please,
in the
do.
letter, as mayor, you asked the UCP to help the city of Calgary sidestep worker rights, privatize services, and quash a duly negotiated contract with thousands of city of Calgary workers. So Naheed, I have to ask this question. Why did you sign that letter, and how is this not a trust buster?
You know, Gil, I really appreciate you asking that question. And I have to say to everyone, I appreciate you not as a competitor on the stage, but as a Labour leader, reaching out to me and asking me my position on this, even outside of this stage. It means a lot to me that you did that. And I will say, look, in the end, I had a super right-wing council that was trying to privatize services. And when you're in that chair, sometimes you got to take tactics to stop what they're doing. And I was able to stop the privatization of golf courses. I was able to minimize the privatization of waste collection in the city because I believe people deserve decent jobs and decent pensions. So let me just say this. I would never rip up a collective agreement. Collective bargaining is sacrosanct. Those are hard won, and we have to support them always.
Thank you. That's your time.
Okay.
That's your time.
Okay. Okay.
The 7th question goes to Jody Callahu Stonehouse, and Sarah Hoffman will be debating. 2 weeks ago, the government of Ontario announced it's raising the minimum wage to $17.20 starting in October. Here in Alberta, our minimum wage hasn't gone up since 2017, when Rachel Notley was premier. If you are premier in 2027, what would you do with minimum wage?
Thank you for your question. Well, of course, we're going to increase minimum wage, but with increasing minimum wage means we also have to support small businesses. As I traveled around, I heard from people that it really hurt them, particularly in the rural when they were trying to pay their bills and pay their staff equitably and keep up with the minimum wage. So that's something we need to consider. When we increase one, we have to ensure that we're increasing everyone's benefits so that they can meet those requirements, because we know increasing minimum wage reduces the use on the food bank. It reduces the trauma and the poverty in families, and it helps with the affordability crisis. And thank you, Rachel Notley, for increasing that, and it's time to do it again.
I was really proud to be a part of the cabinet that did that, and I remember talking to minimum wage earners who said how grateful they were that they didn't have to use the food bank, but also how much dignity it brought them that they didn't have to use the food bank. And there was at least one candidate on this stage who actually fought against the increase to minimum wage, and that breaks my heart. It's one of the things I'm proudest of that we did as an NDP government. And I know that we need to make sure that we increase wages, and we also need to stop the hemorrhage of cash on things like rent. Rent in Calgary and Edmonton is going up faster than anywhere else in the country. And that's why housing is one of my key pillars, because we need to make sure that when we increase wages, that it doesn't just all go to corporate landlords who are going to take that profit and make sure they put it in their own pockets. We need to keep it in workers' pockets.
Well, when you increase...
When you increase...
when you increased minimum wage, what also happened is that child poverty was reduced by half in Alberta. That is incredible. Now more than ever, we see 1 in 3 people are using the food bank. That is not acceptable. So yes, minimum wage increase, affordability is a crisis, and that is one of the ways we manage it.
And the biggest expense that families are facing right now is their rent. It's keeping a roof over their head, which is why this needs to be something that we're unapologetically NDP about. We need to make sure that we are building co-op housing, permanent supportive housing, social housing, affordable housing tied to rent, and I absolutely am thrilled to have a plan to be able to deliver on that. Sorry, Jody wants to interrupt me.
And wraparound services with that housing. We need to support people.
Thank you. I'll send a text that you're my son. The next question tonight goes to Kathleen Ganley, and Gil McGowan will be debating. The UCP has taken every opportunity to fight with the federal government and municipalities, claiming it is the only way to stand up for Alberta and Alberta's jurisdiction. If you are Premier, what would you do and how would you approach relationships with other levels of government?
So I would begin by working with the federal government, regardless of who the federal government is. We are Canadians in this province, and most people identify that way first. And when we refuse to work with the federal government, we really lose out. For instance, rather than taking out massive advertising and attacking the federal plan to get us to a net zero electricity grid, they could have worked with them. We probably could have asked the federal government to pay for an intertie. That would have saved us significant money on our power bills and greened our grid.
Albertans expect their governments to work. And working means working with other levels of government. We are a federation, and the federation doesn't work unless levels of government are talking to each other. And I just want to share a story, a personal story. As president of the Federation of Labor, I went to Ottawa with this blueprint for diversification that we built in the Alberta labor movement, took it to Christina Freeland, and negotiated billions of dollars in tax credits to help support industrial development here in Alberta. You know who was not at that table? Alberta Business was at the table, Alberta Labor was at the table, there was a seat for the government of Alberta, but it was empty. It is embarrassing that someone who is not who's elected to represent Alberta workers is negotiating deals with Ottawa instead of the Premier of the province.
You know what? You are absolutely right, and I want to thank you for doing that work. And to all of the Albertans out there, whether representing labor or businesses that are doing this work on behalf of a provincial government who has abdicated their responsibility to work in the interests of their citizens.
Yeah, this is a government that's actually standing in the way of Alberta. I've got to tell you, 9 times out of 10, the business community here in Alberta agrees with the labor community, even often agreeing with the environmental community about the priorities on things like diversification. We have to get rid of a government that's standing in the way of our province moving forward.
Thank you.
They are the problem.
Question 9 goes to Sarah Hoffman, and Nancy will be debating. In any big tent party, there is a range of political ideology. As leader, how will you ensure that the Alberta NDP is a political home for all Albertans while ensuring the party stays true to its values?
Thanks so much, Rishi, for that question. I am so proud of the work that we've done to increase voices and diverse perspectives around our caucus table, and I am very proud of the fact that I got to play a key role in helping to recruit candidates to run in the last 3 elections, and one of those is Jody, who's standing on this stage with us today. I was really proud to be a part of your journey, Jody, and it's an honor to be here with you. I know that we make better decisions when everyone has their voice reflected, and you mentioned homes. And I've mentioned housing is one of the biggest crises here in Calgary, and there were 170 affordable housing homes in Midfield Park, and I need to know from you, Naheed, why you closed that park, why you evicted those folks. I've talked to many of them, and they are still paying their mortgages, and many of them experienced homelessness.
Sure, happy to answer that, off topic, but happy to answer it. I don't know if you ever went there. I don't know if you ever saw those so-called affordable homes. I'm sure you didn't, but the decision was a hard one. It was an incredibly difficult one, but we ensured that every single tenant who was there had the opportunity to move into a Calgary housing home with priority. And every single one of them who needed to be rehoused in a better place got that better place.
Well, I talked to Callan, and Callan had an affordable home. He bought his trailer for $55,000. He was a newlywed. They were excited to start their family. It was a great place for them to live, and they had a great time there. And he ended up having to move in with his in-laws and leaving Calgary. He took that $55,000 mortgage with him. Thanks for the $10,000, but he's still paying off that mortgage today, 6 years later. He and his family did not think that that was a good move. They were all over the news. They were all begging to have their homes preserved. They were originally promised by you and council that they would be moved to another area, but that never came through. So many people experienced homelessness, and I did not expect somebody who identifies as an NDP mayor.
Do you actually have a single example of someone who experienced homelessness, or are you fear-mongering here, Sarah?
Well, I'm telling you, he had to move in with his in-laws and live in their
so you
basement,
don't
so they
have any-
didn't have a home.
So you
They
don't
didn't
have any
a home.
actual examples?
Well,
because
there
Sarah,
are
this
many
is hard.
examples in the news.
Policy,
I've read the
as
stories
you
too,
know,
and I've
you were the
talked to
Minister
them.
of
Did you
Health.
call them, and did you talk to them? Because I know
I
where they
sat
ended
in their
up.
living rooms, Sarah.
When
and
they had
as the
one.
Minister of Health, Sarah, you should know that sometimes the easy answers are not the easy answers. Sometimes you got to sit with people and find solutions for each individual
And tear
rather
down
than
their
relying
homes. Like
only on
they're
your ideology.
literally still
Thank you
grieving
both.
about this process.
That's time. The next and final question of this round goes to Jody Callahoo Stonehouse, and Kathleen Ganley will be debating. Your mic should work now, Jody. Alberta's provincial budget has been hostage to our royalty revenues. How do you propose to get off the royalty roller coaster and ensure our vital public services continue to get the support that they need?
I start?
Yes, you start.
Okay. Well, that's evident. We have to renegotiate our royalty agreements. Anytime a barrel of oil is over $70, it increases the royalties back to us. We know that oil goes like this, but it has never stopped in production, which means it's likely not going to stop producing. And we have to diversify those royalties that we have. We have to invest in innovation. We have to start getting some SMRs going, but for fourth generation, we have to look at investing in water coolant. Again, we're down to water. How do we separate water? We have to look at geothermal, another source of energy. We are energy leaders in this province, and we need to be competitive with the world selling our energy.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you on geothermal and most of what you just said. I think the 2 points I want to make about this issue are, and the first one is we can't do what the UCP does. We can't use a downturn in the price of oil as an excuse to sell out our seniors, sell out our kids, and sell out our healthcare. That is the wrong thing to do. The second point is that the UCP wastes plenty of money. They spent $1.3 billion gambling on the re-election of Donald Trump. They plan to spend $20 billion to give away to profitable corporations to clean up their own messes. So there are plenty of things that can be cut in the UCP
Which is
budget.
why we have to diversify our economy and invest in our seniors' lodges, in our schools, in our health care. These systems are being literally held together by duct tape and by the love of Albertans. So we have tremendous work to do, and we're going to build an economy. The NDP are going to be net zero. We are going to get there. We are going to invest in entrepreneurs, in innovation. We are going to be strategic about our water because we know water is critical to every economic system in our province.
And we will invest in our people too, in our teachers, in our nurses, in our doctors, in every employee who works for the provincial government or school boards because they are a critical resource.
Thank you. And with that, we conclude the question and answer portion of this afternoon's debate. We will now move to closing statements. Each candidate has 1 minute for closing statements, the order has been randomly drawn. We will hear from Gil McGowan first. You have your 60 seconds now.
There are two big questions that any leadership candidate should be able to answer. What do you stand for, and how will you win? I've made very clear what I stand for: bold, social, democratic policies, public auto insurance, public power, economic diversification. I want to stand up to the convoy crowd. I want to stand up to big oil companies and big utilities when they're acting not in the public interest. And I would stop the denial on issues like climate change and COVID. I've also made it very clear how I would win, by focusing on winning college and trades educated Albertans back from the UCP. One final message: there's a big fee deadline coming up. If I don't raise another $50,000 soon, I'm toast. So if you want me and my message in this campaign, please donate. Thank you.
Thank you, Gil. Jody Calahoo Stonehouse, please go ahead.
Thank you. And I've said it before, our water is precious, our children are precious, and so are the people who look after them. It's about taking care of our water, our land, our children, our elders, which means we need a government that is responsible. How do we get there? We build the team. We have an extraordinary team that we've already built, the largest opposition ever in history. We keep going. We keep going. We get the young people involved. They need to see themselves reflected in the New Democrat Party. We need to get First Nations and Métis people involved. They need to see themselves reflected in the New Democrat Party. We need to get the young women and the young men involved, that they see themselves reflected, because Alberta's values are New Democrat values, and New Democrat values are Alberta's values. We have a tremendous amount of work to do, and I'm here because I believe that a stronger, possible, beautiful Alberta is possible. I said possible twice. There's so much possibility.
Thank you. Thank you, Jody. We'll now hear from Nancy.
I didn't get to answer the question on the big tent. And I think that's a great way for us to remember that we are creating an incredible movement here. Sometimes as progressives, we fall into the trap of offering up purity tests or asking people to say certain magic words before they can join our club, instead of saying that we have to be judged on our values, on our ethics, and on our results. I'm proud of my record. My record is what's brought me here, and I'll defend it against Danielle Smith any day of the week. But what's really important is the movement we've built. Tens of thousands of people, 10,000 volunteers on my campaign, all of them saying we deserve a better Alberta. We deserve an Alberta we can be prouder of. Because as we all know, it is impossible to dream small when the sky is that big. And so together, friends, we can do this for Alberta, for all of us.
Thank you. Thank you, Nayat. Kathleen Ganley is up next.
Thank you. Some people think that to beat Danielle Smith, we need to get louder and more critical. I am offering you a very different type of leadership. Make no mistake, I will make the case against the UCP, but I will also make the case for us. And we do that with a real offer that speaks directly to the economic challenges of the day. I know what didn't work last time and what will work next time. Call me old-fashioned, but I believe we need to lead with ideas. When we talk about our ideas, we change hearts and minds. My name is Kathleen Ganley. I am running to be leader of this party, and to form the next NDP government of Alberta. And I am asking for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathleen. And Sarah Hoffman, please go ahead.
More than 1 million Albertans didn't bother to vote in the last provincial election. And I've knocked on those doors with you. They told me we need bold solutions. There's a woman who I think about often. She lived in Calgary East. She works 3 jobs, and she told me she wasn't going to take an hour off to go vote because she needed to earn every dollar at those jobs to be able to pay her rent. As Premier, I'm going to make sure she can work 1 job and afford to live in the city of Calgary. As Premier, I'm going to make sure we can all breathe the air next May, which right now is at its most dangerous level in the world. And I'm going to make sure that every single one of us can get a family doctor and a nurse practitioner. This is my record. It's why I've won 5 times in a row by being an unapologetic New Democrat and leading with vision. And that is why we are going to win this leadership, and it's why we're all going to win in 2027. And I invite you, every single member, to join me in that journey, because I want to make sure that that mom votes in the next election, and another 1 million Albertans see hope and opportunity in this place and this party. So join us.
Thanks, Sarah.
Candidates, audience members, that concludes today's debate. Thank you to all of our candidates who are here today. Thank you to everyone here who attended in person and those who joined us online today for your questions and for your participation. Before we go, we wanted to say we would love to see you all June 21st for the Rachel Notley Legacy Gala to celebrate our outgoing leader and all that she has done to build our party to what it is today.
And the next debate is in Edmonton, June 2nd. And the next leader of Alberta NDP will be selected on June 22nd. Thank you, and have a great rest of your weekend. Thank you, Sharon. You have been a teacher.